Hi, I'm Chris Halaby with Muse Research and Development, and I'd like to welcome you to a series of videos that we're doing on Receptor solutions to challenges that musicians face every day on tour and in the studio. This particular video is called Expanding Your Pro Tools Universe Using the UniWire Plug-in. UniWire is a plug-in just like any other. It instantiates into a digital audio workstation application. In this case it's Pro Tools, but it could be Logic, Ableton Live, Digital Performer, Sonar, Cubase, pretty much the one of your choice. There's one huge difference though. The resource-hungry plugins are actually running on the Receptor. They're not running on your host computer. Let me describe the hardware setup that we've got here. It's a MacBook Pro. It's actually an enhanced MacBook Pro. It's got a little faster hard drive and actually a larger capacity hard drive. And it's connected to the Receptor with one single Ethernet cable. That's why we call it UniWire. The only other hardware here is the M-Box from DigiDesign, which is connected through USB, and the audio that you're going to hear is actually coming out of the M-Box. It's important to note that all the processing, once again, is actually done on the Receptor. It's not done on your laptop here. So that leaves the laptop clear for lots of other resource-intensive applications that you might need it for. Okay, so let me illustrate my point here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to play a Pro Tools file. This particular file has all the plugins actually instantiated inside of Pro Tools. The Receptor is not part of the equation at all. So let's just press the space bar here. Music starts. Well, look what just happened. This is something musicians see every day. It's basically the "you are running out of CPU power" dialogue. Okay, it's not surprising that that didn't run. There are actually about 12 different plugins instantiated there, including 7 instruments inside of Omnisphere, 2 inside a sample tank. It was a pretty richly textured file. So you could go through all sorts of machinations and gymnastics trying to get this to work. You could freeze tracks, you could move them around, you could render things. It's all pretty inconvenient. So what you can do instead is actually use the Receptor. So this particular file that I've just opened is actually now instantiated the UniWire plugin. The MIDI and audio are going over that Ethernet line into the Receptor. All the processing is being done on the Receptor, and it's coming back and being played once again through the M-Box. So you're going to hear the file go. Note the CPU meter here. It's just slightly moving. And if you stop the file, which I will in a second, once again it doesn't move. Start the file again. It's just there's just no processing being asked of the laptop here. Okay, so let's talk about how this is done. You're looking at the Pro Tools file. I've basically set up a loop within the file. I'm going to start the music, and I'm going to open the plugin that's instantiated on this shamisen track here. Here's the UniWire plugin. Basically, you've got some information on the left part of the screen which tells you what bank is on the Receptor and which patch is within that bank that's running on the Receptor. You can choose which particular Receptor. In this case, we've got one connected, but you can have quite a few connected at one time. And the basic sample buffer size, which determines the latency. In this case, it's 256 samples, which is twice what the Pro Tools sample buffer size is set for. 128 is actually a pretty good level for keeping latency at a minimum. So in this particular case, the shamisen is actually instantiated on the 5th channel in the Receptor. So let's talk about the Receptor's UI. Now note the Receptor's user interface is set up like any submixer. There's a source. The source can be run through 3 different effects processes if you choose to. There's 16 different tracks. In the right-hand side of the screen, there's basically information about how you save and load patches. But actually, that's done automatically for you by UniWire. If you go into a particular track, in this case it's the shamisen track, remember this is the one that it's assigned to, open the Edit button, and there is the user interface of the plugin itself. You can move any of the knobs, buttons, etc. on the plugin. It behaves just like you are running the plugin on your host computer. So that's pretty useful stuff if you don't have to use up your computer with all these tasks. Let's look at the Pro Tools mixer. Once again, The UniWire plugin is instantiated just like any other plugin So the music comes up in the Pro Tools mixer, and you can move the channels of the UniWire tracks just like you'd move any Pro Tools instantiated plugin. All the mix automation works. Everything works as if this was a plugin running on your computer, except all the processing is done on the Receptor rather than your host computer. Tracks are recorded using UniWire the same as any other plugin. Here's a track called Zeta. This track is in record mode. Choose the plugin up here just like any other plugin. Go down to Muse Research. There's the VST instrument. Choose that and you're ready to go. That particular track was assigned to channel 6 on the Receptor. So if we go to the Receptor's user interface, I want to show one more thing about it that's really great. The Receptor, because it supports Windows VST plugins, basically has a huge database of plugins that are supported, many of which are not available either in RTAS format or on the Macintosh. Here's a particularly cool one called Zeta 3. The user interface looks like this. It's got some pretty awesome sounds. It's one more nice feature of the Receptor is that at the top level of the user interface you can actually select and change patches using the arrow keys on the computer. So if you want to try different sounds, you can just audition them. This is actually pretty useful because you don't have to go into the plugin's user interface every time in order to audition sounds. We've been talking about a solution that Receptor provides for the problems that musicians face with CPU-intensive plugins. They really deliver the goods in terms of sound and flexibility, but they take up a lot of processing time. UniWire offloads that processing onto the Receptor rather than on the computer that's running the host application. UniWire provides all the benefits that plugins provide. For example, the settings can be saved with your project. It can be integrated into your mixer like any other plugin. So that's huge, especially when that processor is being overloaded. For Pro Tools and Macintosh users, UniWire provides another benefit, which is expanding the world to include Windows VST plugins, a much larger world. UniWire is free for all Receptor owners. But wait, there's one more thing. The Receptor is just as portable as your laptop computer.